After scoring a big win in the defamation lawsuit filed against them by Dr. Chris Amon, CM Punk and Colt Cabana, dealing with yet another lawsuit, only this time they are pitted against one another. Colt Cabana this week filed suit against, I think it's safe now to say, his former best friend, CM Punk, for breach of contract. There we go again, another lawsuit over breach of contract here. Breach of contract and fraud over Cabana's mountain of legal bills stemming from the other suit, which he alleges Punk said that he would take care of before changing his mind and leaving Cabana to foot the attorney bills on his own. Bills that, I mean, overall the bills were well over $500,000, but for what Cabana would have been responsible for, would have amounted to over $200,000. I'm guessing Colt Cabana, as good as his merch probably does, and he probably does okay for himself, probably doesn't have $200,000 just sitting around. So for him, that's a problem. First of all, let me just say this. This entire situation is really sad. It really is. It's just, there were rumors that these two had a falling out of some kind a few years ago after the lawsuit had first been filed by Amon. We didn't know why. There were rumors that Punk found out Cabana was backstage visiting people at a WWE show. It might have been Raw. And he felt betrayed because he felt that it could hurt their case against the doctor. It's like, what are you doing in enemy territory over here? And, it wouldn't be the first time we've had stories emerge of Punk being petty about something. I think Hornswoggle, remember? Hornswoggle said that he either texted or called. I think he texted Punk once about asking for someone's phone number. I think he had the person's number and lost it and just was asking Punk, hey, can you just give me this person's number? And Punk, basically disowned him as a friend or something. We've heard stories like this before. I don't doubt that CM Punk is probably like that and that there's truth to at least some of these stories. But as far as that story goes, that's never been confirmed. That was a rumor that has never actually been confirmed that was the nature of why they were no longer friends. In reading through this complaint, honestly, it sounds like the falling out may have stemmed from money and not necessarily a single incident like that. It may have stemmed from all of this. We still don't know for sure. Now, I did read through all 15 pages of the complaint, which, as legal documents go, 15 pages is nothing. So I figured, wow, thank God, there could have easily been 50 or more pages in this thing. So I read through all 15 pages. You can find it online. It's not that hard. Just search around for it. The first time I saw the complaint, I was reading an article on the Chicago Sun-Times website, and they linked to the complaint, so you might want to go there and find it. The gist of it is this, and let me just say this first. You will not find many other podcasters or websites run by people with law degrees or who practice law in the state of Illinois, which is where this suit is filed and where the two of them live. Okay, I certainly don't have a law degree, nor do we know all of the evidence here. And we've only heard one side of the story. We still haven't even heard Punk's version of events. So anybody that you see or hear from who plays Perry Mason and tells you they know exactly what's going on here, or they know how it all is going to shake out, they're full of crap. Okay, it's an educated guess at best, because we don't know yet. We don't yet have all of the facts. So just keep that in mind as we go along here and as you read and hear and see things as the week goes on, because I'm sure everybody will be chiming in on this. This is my reading and my interpretation of what is outlined here in the complaint. Just be weary of anybody who claims to know it all, because they don't. Because they don't. Everybody thinks they have a law degree all of a sudden. It's kind of funny. I've seen lawyers in certain posts and whatnot. I've actual lawyers chime in on this, and there are different opinions from different attorneys about who is responsible for what. So even lawyers that I have seen online don't agree that it's a one-size-fits-all, well, Punk has a case or Cabana has a case. They all have differing opinions on this. Just keep that in mind. Cabana claims that Punk had promised to help him out with his legal bills. Cabana really was caught in the crossfire here. He had Punk on his podcast back in the end of 2014, The Art of Wrestling, to tell his story. It was the first tell-all, basically, by Punk since he had left the company about why he left, all of the stuff that was going on, the lump that he claimed he had on his lower back, all of that stuff. It all came out in this podcast interview. And yes, the show did huge numbers, and Cabana probably profited off of it in terms of his download numbers and maybe from advertisements or merch money and whatnot. But I doubt he profited off of it to the tune of 200 grand, okay? Even still, he provided the platform for CM Punk to give his side of the story, and he found himself sued for it. And as somebody who has a podcast, I can feel for him. That's a horrible situation for him to be in. And it's a very scary thing. And it was on December 14th, 2014, Cabana got a letter from Eamon's attorney, the good doctor's lawyer, claiming that Cabana had caused the dissemination of certain false statements to the general public that was damaging to his client's reputation, and he asked that he immediately take down the episode where he interviewed Punk. He also wanted Cabana to issue a retraction. So these were the demands that were sent by the lawyer to Colt Cabana. The first thing Cabana did, he immediately texted Punk to let him know, and Punk said that he would have his attorney take care of it. He'll handle it, he said. And there are copies of those text messages that Punk later said, he'll talk to the lawyer about coming up with a game plan here, and he would make sure that Cabana was 100% covered. That is allegedly the exact words used by Punk in this text message. Now, with Punk telling him that he would be 100% covered and not to worry about it, Cabana just didn't listen to the letter. He didn't comply with the demands that were made by Eamon's lawyer. So keep that in mind as we go along here. Then there was a signed retention agreement between Punk, Cabana, and Punk's legal firm that they would bill CM Punk for all of the legal services and all of the expenses that are incurred. And, quote, it is our understanding that Punk will be responsible. I'm saying Punk, obviously they use his real name here, but it is our understanding, this is what the firm said, that Punk will be responsible for paying these invoices. And one of the exhibits submitted was a copy of the agreement, this retention agreement. So they represented Cabana as well in this lawsuit. They were representing Punk, and they took on representing Cabana as well. Then, fast forward a couple of years, April 2016, is where things take a very weird turn. Cabana alleges that Punk did an about-face. He demanded that Cabana pay one or more of the illegal bills from the firm. And Cabana has emails that he shared, although I believe, I read somewhere that they were not actually original copies of these emails. I'm not sure why that is or what that means exactly, but in any event, this was an email that Punk allegedly sent to Cabana. This is what Punk told him. He said, to date, I have spent $513,736 on this Eamon lawsuit. My outstanding current bill is at least $300,000. Half of this is yours. Divide the $513,000 by 2, and that is what you owe me and what I expect you to pay me. And that works out to about 260 grand. Starting now, I will no longer be paying your bills. You are on your own. Whatever my bill is currently will be cut in half, and half will be yours. If you choose to make this all ugly, that's fine too. I hope you don't, but I gave up on you doing the right thing a long time ago. Well, that sure sounds like a dick move on Punk's part. There really is no way to spin that without any context here, without having all the facts. You just read what's there on printed paper, and CM Punk looks like a real dick. That being said, it sounds to me like that may only be part of an email exchange between them. I don't know that he just randomly sent that one paragraph to Cabana. It feels to me like there was more of a dialogue there between them, and that's not all of it. There may be more emails that led up to this. If so, I would like to see those emails. If all of this is going to end up coming out publicly anyway, then I look forward to seeing what those other emails said. Again, we're only getting one side of the story here, so it's tough. On the surface, it sounds terrible what Punk did here. Right? Whether he explicitly stated it or not, he led this guy to believe that he would be fully covered and did not have to worry about any of this until he did, of course. And I doubt that Cabana is raking in the kind of dough that Punk has over the years. And he's doing now what he feels like he has to protect himself. He's asking for $200,000 in general damages. He's asking for another $1 million in punitive and other damages. His suit claims that Punk acted with fraud, malice, and oppression towards Colt Cabana with the deliberate intention of causing him harm. That's a pretty strong statement to make right there. Now, we've heard Cabana's argument. We've seen and read about the evidence, or some of the evidence he claims to have. The ball now is in CM Punk's court. He's going to have to respond to this at some point, or he could just pay the guy off and, be done with him. And Punk does not strike me as the kind of person to do that, especially if he does not like Colt Cabana, if he's got beef with him. I don't know that he's going to just pay him off to shut him up. Now, the following month, so now we're in May of 2016, Cabana lets Punk's law firm know that he is prepared to retain separate counsel for himself, to defend himself. And Cabana's lawyer, his new lawyer, submits a substitution of attorneys form to Punk's firm, which was attached in the complaint. Punk's lawyer then tells Colt Cabana that he, being the lawyer, and Punk both believed it would be best for him not to do that. Don't substitute your counsel. And a few weeks later, he emailed Punk, or rather Cabana again. He said, look, despite your unwillingness to contribute to your legal fees, I am still prepared to represent you, and Phil is prepared to have me represent you and cover your legal fees going forward, as long as there is no conflict between you and Phil that prevents me from fairly and ethically representing you. At this time, I don't believe that any such conflict exists. Cabana accepted that, and he allowed for Punk's firm to continue representing him. At no point, this is what Cabana says now, at no point from that date forward was there any such conflict that would have prevented Punk's firm from representing him. And yet, in March of the following year, 2017, Cabana says that he was informed, and this is what he alleges, that Punk told his firm to drop Cabana as a client, and the firm notified Cabana that they were withdrawing their representation of him. So then at that point, finally now, a year later, after he first said that he was going to do this, Colt Cabana goes and he gets his own lawyer. He retains his own counsel, which, again, he had tried to do previously. And we all know the jury, of course, back in June of this year, came back with a verdict in favor of Punk and Cabana, after which Cabana's lawyers informed Punk's lawyers of his demand for reimbursement of approximately $200,000 in legal fees incurred by Cabana to defend himself. And Punk's firm refuses to comply with that request, and that has led to where we are today. Now, Cabana actually flat out says in the complaint here that the only reason he did not comply with the initial demands made by Dr. Amon's lawyers at the beginning of all this was because CM Punk said he would be 100% covered. He believes, had he complied with the original letter, he never would have been sued in the first place by Amon. And he would not have incurred all of these massive legal fees in the first place. He also believes that the entire reason Punk's lawyer sent him that letter suggesting that he not retain separate counsel when he said he was thinking about doing so, or he was going to do so, was because Punk was worried that if Cabana went and got his own lawyers, well, Cabana's lawyers aren't interested in the well-being of CM Punk. They're only interested and concerned about their own client, and they may well suggest to Cabana that he go and settle this. He might be more apt, Cabana would be, to reach an agreement with Amon to settle, and Punk did not want that. So, you look at this whole thing. I think this hinges on the idea that Punk may have agreed to cover Cabana's legal fees, but only as they applied to his own lawyer representing Cabana, not somebody else. Now, that doesn't explain why CM Punk had such an about face in April of 2016 when he sent that email to Cabana saying, hey, you're on your own. Half of this is your responsibility from now on. Because that certainly doesn't seem like that was his attitude at the beginning of all this. So exactly what it was that led to that about face is still sort of unknown. But it was only after that exchange that Cabana even raised the idea of getting his own lawyer. And he didn't actually do that until the following year. But it sounds like Punk just doesn't think he's responsible for any legal bills that were incurred by the other guy's lawyers. The question, of course, is legally, at least in the state of Illinois, does CM Punk saying that Colt Cabana would be 100% covered also extend to any representation that he himself may have retained? That sounds to me like the key question that's going to have to be decided here. And the only reason Cabana even retained his own counsel is because Punk's team dropped him. They dropped him like a bad habit. Right? That's the only reason he even went and got his own law firm in the first place. Punk comes off horribly in this. When you read through the complaint and you read through the texts and the emails, and there's no other way to spin it. He just does not come off like a good person. But again, we need to hear his side of the story before we completely castrate the guy. He may have his own emails. He may have his own text messages. He may have some kind of signed agreement. We just don't know yet. I think Cabana has a strong case for breach of contract. Text messages can be binding contracts in certain situations. I see a lot of debate online about this. A text message can't be a contract. Yes, it can be, actually, in certain situations. I don't know if this is one of those situations. It may not apply here, but to say that text messages are not legally binding ever, that's just not true. That is simply not true. Now, fraud, which is the other thing that Cabana is alleging, I think that's going to be a lot tougher because the onus is on Cabana to prove that CM Punk intended to defraud him and intended to cause him harm. It sort of implies that Punk knew at the time that he said he was going to cover Cabana's legal fees that he really wasn't going to do that. I think that's going to be a steeper hill for Cabana to climb in the absence of any other documents that he may introduce that we maybe still don't know about. But I think there's a good chance that this ends up getting settled. Cabana does get something. I don't know if it's all the money he's asking for, but he'll get something. And then CM Punk ends up going after Dr. Amen to recoup his legal fees, which I'm not sure why either guy did not do that in the first place. Just go after the doctor. And neither one of them did that. But Cabana obviously felt like he had a stronger case with Punk because of these promises that were made to him. He feels like he was lied to, and he thinks he has the messages and the evidence to back it up. Will they hold up in court? We shall find out.